Hello everyone, welcome back to the Traxion YouTube channel and welcome to week 9 of my Fanatec GT3 track guide series here on iRacing, and this week it brings us to Summit Point, a brilliant track in the MX-5, but in the GT3s I'm not so sure. So if you followed my track guides before, you'll know that they are not placed for hot laps. This is a slow, methodical approach to learn the circuit where I show you my braking markers and reference points and talk about the quirks that each circuit has. So as usual, I will show you the flying lap in full first of all, then we'll jump in the car, do a few laps and show you those braking markers and reference points in action. So let's get on track. Okay then, so here we are on the main straight here at Summit Point. So as usual, we've set this session to match the official series. So it's the 14th of August 2021 and the time in the sim is 8:15 AM. We're also using the medium downforce sprint setup, which is used in the official series. And brake bias this week, we've gone way down from previous weeks. We're using 50.3. Now, there aren't too many places here where you're trail braking. You are braking approaching the turn and then releasing the brake to get round. There's a couple of places here where we need to brake really hard, so a lower brake bias is much better. I've experimented with 54, which is what it comes as stock, in between 49 and 54, and I think 50.3 is a decent compromise. So we've all been around Summit Point before in the rookie Mazdas and such like when we first start iRacing, and as we all know that GT3 racing here isn't that easy, only because the track is really narrow and there aren't too many places where you can overtake. So we're not going to get up to 6th gear here unless we're in draft and we get a good run out of the final turn, but we're going to be approaching turn number 1 in 5th gear and we're going to be looking at these cones on the left hand side. I brake just after the 4. So kind of in between the 4 and the 3, but just after the 4 here on the left hand side. So we're going to be braking in a straight line all the way down to 1st gear. Now you can take this in 2nd, but I have noticed that if you do that, the torque of the engine just creates a little bit of wheel spin. You can lose a bit of traction. So what I like to do is brake all the way down into 1st gear, and I like to turn in quite late here. Apex this one really late, and then get on the gas here at this point at the end of the curb. And I like to take the car all the way up to the red line in 1st gear or just before. And then that prevents a little bit of wheel spin. Then up to 2nd gear, let the car run out wide, 3rd gear, up to 4th gear here. Now this is, we've all done this probably, we've all put wheels here on the grass on the right hand side. Really, really easy to do. And this is probably going to be a place where people will make it too wide. And it's not really the place to make it too wide because it doesn't often end well. So here we're going to be braking just after this little access road on the right hand side. And this is one of the places where we're going to be braking and then letting the car coast into the corner. We're not really going to be trail braking too much here. We're going to be using 4th gear, leave it in 4th, don't downshift. So braking round about here, get the car nice and settled, then turn in quite late. You can get on the gas here earlier than you think. If you take a bit of curb on the inside, that's not too bad. And the car will run out wide to try and wind off the steering as you come out the turn, just to help with the car going up the hill so it doesn't over-rotate. And then you will run a couple of wheels on this curb here. A little bit on the sand isn't too bad. You won't get off track. Just be mindful of that. Then keep accelerating all the way down here, up to 5th gear. Keep the car over to the left. And we're going to be in 5th gear at this point. Still on the gas here, still on the gas. Just before we turn in, we're going to be lifting and then heading for the apex of this turn here. The car will then drift out wide, but as soon as we get round the turn, we're covering the brake. And we're going to be hard on the brakes here, down to 1st gear. This really tricky complex. Now, the key to this complex is being patient. It's really easy to overdrive. Think, I can go faster, I can go faster. You can't. You've got to be nice and smooth, nice and patient. So down to 1st gear. Nice tight line around here because it is cambered on the inside. And there is a piece of tarmac or concrete here that does offer a little bit more grip than the outside. Obviously, this is where the rubber is. They're nice and tight round here in 1st gear. Then accelerate out up to 2nd gear. And then we're going to be braking here and then down to 1st gear. Again, nice and tight round this first section here. And then as soon as we're on the apex here, as soon as we're hugging this curb, we're going to be accelerating out. Short shift to 2nd gear. And then we're going to be looking for this next right-hander, because here now we're setting up the final turn onto the straight before the final turn, if that makes sense. So here we're starting to set up a corner, 3 corners in advance. And how you take that right-hander up the hill towards the final turn is dictated by how well you get through these turns. So what I use here, there's the silo right in front of us there. We can use that as our reference point. When we see that, we know we need to start getting the car over to the right-hand side. So we're going to be in 2nd gear, short shift to 3rd if you feel you need to. And then we want to apex this one quite late because we want the car over here on the right-hand side to open up this left. So nice and tight round here, and then we want the car right over to the left here because this is the turn that we need to set up. We need a really good run out of here, which may open up an overtaking opportunity into the final turn. There's only a couple of places here where you're going to get a move done. That's turn 1 and the final turn, really. The rest of it is going to be a bit of a procession, or it should be. There's not really many places where you want to send it. So here, 3rd gear, and we're going to be lifting, balancing the throttle all the way through this complex here. We're never going to be really on full gas. We're going to be just modulating the throttle just to keep the front of the car loaded. Now here, it is banked on the inside. There is a bit of camber. So here, you want to be accelerating all the way out wide. The car will run on the curves. Be careful you don't go on the grass. And then down towards the final turn. Again, we're going to be up to 5th gear on the left-hand side. Now, my braking marker here, there's nothing really on the track. So I use the pit lane entrance as my reference point. When I get alongside that, when I'm approaching the pit lane entrance, I know that I need to get the car settled, ready for the final turn. Because this is actually a really tricky turn, this one. It's so easy to turn in early, but there is a bit of runoff that you can use. So we're going to be braking down into 4th gear, get the car nice and settled. And then we're going to be turning in. You can take a little bit of the curb on the inside, but not too much. But as soon as you're here, as soon as you're on the apex, 4th gear, we're going to be flat out, hard on the gas. Let the car run all the way out wide on here. Just bear in mind, get the car back on before the grass. That's 1 lap, so we'll start to just pick up the pace a little bit now. It'll make more sense when we speed up slightly. So we're up to 5th gear. We're going to be braking just after the 4 cones, in between the 4 and the 3. So there's the 4. We're going to be braking all the way down to 1st gear, turning in really late, trying to avoid that curb on the inside. Then accelerating, let the car drift out wide to 4th gear, looking for this access road on the right hand side. There it is. So braking, 4th gear, accelerate, use all this curb on the right, use a little bit of the sand, it doesn't matter. Go 5th gear, just before we turn, we're going to lift. And then we're going to cover the brake nice and hard all the way down to 1st gear, nice and tight. then accelerate round up to second, and then we're going to be back down to first, nice and tight. Start to accelerate, look for that silo, there it is, so we need to start moving over. Third gear, get the car over to the left hand side here, open up this right, then we can get on the gas. If you open up that right hander, you can get on the gas nice and early, which might open up something into the final turn. So looking for the pit entrance there, down to fourth gear, nice and smooth, get on the gas at the apex, let the car run all the way out wide. And that's a lap. Again, we'll try and pick up the pace a little bit. So what was that, a 110? So just after the 4, leaving it in 5th gear. Just after the 4 cones there, all the way down, straight line. Apex this one late, then we can get on the gas. Right to the red line, just prevents a bit of wheel spin. On this access road here, we're going to be braking. And accelerate through. Open up the turn on the exit, up to 5th gear. Just before we turn, we're going to lift, cover the brake, and then we're going to brake. Nice and tight round here. Then accelerate, short shift to second, and back to first. Accelerate through, look for the silo, there it is, so we need the car over to the right. My throttle inputs, I'm never 100% throttle round here until I get through this final turn, and then we're on full gas. All the way through. So the pit lane entrance, we're going to be braking down to 4th gear, then accelerate on the apex, let the car run right out wide. Is that going to be a sub 108? Doubted. No, we'll get a sub 108, then we'll call it a day. So after the 4 cones, we're going to brake down into 1st gear. You've got to watch for that grass on the left hand side there. I've done that a couple of times in practice. Really easy just to do that if you're trying to make the track as wide as you can, because it is a narrow track. Looking for the access road there. Accelerate through. Up to 5th gear. Just before we turn, we're going to lift. And then get on the brakes. Nice and tight round here. A bit wide there, but it's alright. We'll get it back. 1st gear. Again, nice and tight. Short shift to second. There's the silo. Get it back over to the right. My throttle inputs were never 100%. We're just modulating that throttle until now. Up to 5th gear, looking for the pit lane entrance. Then we're going to be on the brakes. On the apex, get on the gas nice and early. There we go. So that's a sub 108 lap. 107.5. That's not going to be too far off. Low 107s, I think it's where it's at. Yeah, it's going to be really tough this week. Race pace towards the front, probably low 107s. But it's all about being really smooth on that complex towards the end of the lap. It is really important not getting your wheels on the grass on the right, because that will ruin your race. You will be in that barrier and that's your race done. Here, there's not really going to be anything done down here. Everything's going to be a procession. Just watch for people running into the back of you down into this turn here. Now, this is where the good lap starts, and it's all about being patient. Not being 100% on the gas. Just modulating that throttle, keeping the front of the car loaded round here. So from here on in, this is where you need to start thinking about that right-hander that leads up the hill, because you need to make sure that your car is here. So that starts 2 or 3 turns earlier on. That's what makes a good lap around Summit Point, is that midsection there. It's all about being nice and calm, nice and patient, not rushing it. It should be a fun week, but from experience, can be a bit chaotic. Now let's look at pit entry, pit exit. So we'll simulate a pit entry now. Now, the pit entry here at Summit Point isn't easy because you are braking and turning. It can be quite tricky. You've just got to wind it back a little bit on pit entry. So you approach it as normal. We're going to be up to 5th gear. And as soon as you enter the pit road, really, we're going to be on the brakes. And keep on the brakes, because the yellow cones are just round here. You've just got to wind it back a little bit. It's not easy, it's quite tricky. Pit exit, on the other hand, straightforward. All you've got to make sure that you keep in mind is This is going to be the biggest overtaking opportunity. It's turn 1. And keep your car over to the right hand side because people might be coming down here 2, 3 wide. So just bear that in mind when you're leaving the pits. But there's nothing too dramatic about pit exit here at Summit Point, apart from it's a narrow track. People might be making it 2 or 3 wide as you come out the pits. So there we go, that's Summit Point done. Hopefully this guide helps. Please let me know in the comments below what your times were before the guide, what your times were after. Did it help? Am I teaching the right things? Am I covering everything that you want to be covered in a track guide? Please let me know in the comments down below. So next week, for week 10, we go to Charlotte Roval, which is another really difficult circuit in the GT3s, but it should be fun. That's it from me. Hopefully this helped. Thanks for watching. Good luck this week. See you later. Cheers.